Greetings. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show here live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast alongside Todd Erzin and Aaron McIntyre. I'm Steve Deace. We're back after a long weekend, brought to you by our friends over at Constitution Wealth, who believe your investment should work as hard as you do and align with your beliefs as well. So let's build a parallel economy by working with an investment firm made up of professionals who share our values. Visit constitutionwealth.com/blaze for a free consultation. That's constitutionwealth.com/blaze. And remember, they're a registered investment advisor. You should review Constitution Wealth's disclosures at constitutionwealth.com to understand their services and fees, and that all investing involves risk, including the risk of loss. I am a client of the firm, and this is a paid endorsement, but my opinions are my own. Also, don't forget to get your latest copy of Frontier Mag here at Blaze TV. In a world that's gone fully digital, there's just something about being able to hold something again, something that just can't get buried in an algorithm. And that's something we want to offer you is Frontier, which is available with a Blaze Unlimited subscription right now at blazeunlimited.com/Deace. It gives you a chance to go even deeper with us for even more VIP access and get $40 off your annual Blaze Unlimited subscription, including your copies of Frontier, our outstanding quarterly magazine, to the first 50 subscribers who use the code BLAZE50. BLAZE50 is the code for the first 50 to use that code. Get $40 off and the issues of Frontier at blazeunlimited.com/Deace using the promo code BLAZE50. Good to see Todd Erzin and Aaron McIntyre again. I trust you guys had excellent long weekends.
Yeah, it was good.
We did very much. Yeah, it was nice.
Good. So did we. Celebrating the wife's birthday. And then we've got another long weekend coming up on Labor Day. We'll have Monday off as a holiday. And then the typical grind at the end of the year, even though it's a non-election year, there's still a lot going to be going on this fall. So we don't have too much scheduled off for the rest of the year. So thank you for bearing with us. You know, we are still doing, some of you are like, and it's a good problem to have, right? It's better than, we didn't miss you, right? Rather have that. True. But guys, we're producing 240 original shows a year. I would venture a guess that's among the most in the entire industry, I would guess. It's certainly up there. So, we are doing our tour of duty here. Aaron, did you want to chime in on this?
Yeah, when you take into account overtime, that's just the show alone. That's what? That's going to end up being 450 or so pieces of content. Right.
And all the evergreens we record and everything else. So I got to give these guys some days off, man. They do all the heavy lifting, particularly Aaron. All right. So coming up on the show today, we're going to talk to a mom who's been making national news here in Iowa for what has been happening to her since she dared to speak out at her local school board meeting about what she viewed as objectionable content to be subjecting her children to. So we're going to talk to her about that coming up at the bottom of the hour. Next hour, we're going to get into the Cracker Barrel discussion, but I want to have it more broadly, because it's not just Cracker Barrel is doing this. McDonald's looks way different than it did when we were kids. Taco Bell looks way different than it did when we were kids. There's a lot of chains and eateries that are making the kinds of rebrands that Cracker Barrel is doing. And I want to know, as we get into idolatry or not, are these things are these signs of a declining civilization? How much does the architecture of a culture have to say about the worth and value of said culture? Or is it just as simple as Starbucks is the number one chain in the world right now, and this is the look that they have gone with, and this is what tends to attract Gen Zs and millennials, and that's who everybody's shooting for now. We're the old people now, Todd. So everybody's shooting for Gen Zs and millennials, and there's nothing to it more than that. And even if there is nothing to it more than that, what does it say that is what's attracting the next generation? A complete and total utilitarian lack of imagination. So we're going to spend some time talking about this. And things are going bad for the Rainbow Jihad when? None other than Snoop Dogg says bleep has gone too far. So we'll get into that for Pop Culture Tuesday. And as of now, It is 12:05 Eastern time. No requisite tweet of apology yet from Snoop Dogg. Has anybody seen that from Calvin Brodus yet?
Not to my knowledge.
Yeah, I've been educated because 5 years ago, 3 years ago, that would have happened immediately, right? I mean, this guy is getting. Was there a commercial in 2024 that didn't have a Snoop Dogg connection? So think about it. And not too long ago, for him to say what he is saying about there's way too much homo in the movies. Every corporate entity in America would have boycotted him right after these comments. And the fact that they're still about 24, 36 hours old, and there hasn't been the requisite my bust, my bad, and I promise to now be allow myself to be sodomized, just as an atoning offer, as an act of penance for daring to be offended. That hasn't happened yet, has it?
No.
Which I think that kind of may speak volumes as well. So we'll get into all that and more. But first, let's get into Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
What happened while we were away, brought to you by You're Fired. President Trump last night fired Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook for cause, claiming she committed mortgage fraud. Cook does have a criminal referral over the matter, but she says the president can't fire her and will continue on in her duties. President Trump also yesterday announced a new executive order aimed at incarcerating those who burn American flags in certain circumstances.
What the penalty is going to be, if you burn a flag, you get 1 year in jail, no early exits, no nothing. You get 1 year in jail. If you burn a flag, you get, and what it does is incite to riot. I hope they use that language.
At that same signing ceremony, President Trump made a statement that turned a lot of heads.
It's a very important relationship. We're going to get along good with China. I hear so many stories about we're not going to allow their students, or we're going to allow their students to come in. We're going to allow, it's very important, 600,000 students. It's very important. But we're going to get along with China.
U.S. Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick argued in favor of continuing on with 500,000 Chinese spies getting into top universities.
What would happen if you didn't have those 600,000 students is that you'd empty them from the top. All the students would go up to better schools, and the bottom 15% of universities and colleges would go out of business in America. So his view is he's taking a rational economic view, which is classic Donald Trump.
Notorious Maryland man Kilmar Abrego Garcia was taken into Immigration and Customs Enforcement custody yesterday. You'll remember he was that illegal alien, maybe trafficker, who was originally sent to the El Salvador prison, but was sent back because bureaucracy. It's sounding like now, because of U.S. statutes, he's going to end up in Uganda. His lawyer says that just can't happen.
It is preposterous that they would send him to Africa, to a country where he doesn't even speak the language.
Abrego Garcia, your thoughts?
Gracias a casa, mi segunda casa. A mi sindicato smart.
Learning Chinese today. Today's phrase is, sounds like Swahili to me.
对我来说，听起来像是斯瓦西里语。
Since we last spoke, the FBI raided the home of former National Security Advisor John Bolton. The investigation is related to whether or not Bolton actually released and disseminated classified materials in his book. Checking in on Michigan Democrats, here's Senate candidate Abdul El Sayed.
We need Democrats who have the courage to stand up to the power brokers in our own party, let alone Trump and his goons. We don't back down. We don't back down. We don't back down. With all due respect, if they go low, we don't go high. We take them to the mud and choke them out.
The left-wing think tank Third Way has produced a memo that's reportedly circulating amongst some Democrats, urging them to refrain from using certain words and phrases. The blacklisted words contain words and phrases like triggering, othering, microaggression, cultural appropriation, the unhoused, birthing person, cisgender, patriarchy, LGBTQIA+, BIPOC, and so on. Maybe it's the first step at some self-awareness from Democrat land. And finally, an update from Cracker Barrel.
Here at Cracker Barrel, we value diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's why we are going one step further to ruin our brand. We are investing millions of dollars into replacing all of brown pegs in the peg game to bright, colorful pegs. Also, we're changing the rules. The white pegs are not allowed to move or jump anymore, leaving the colored pegs to do whatever they want. We call it Down with the Cracker. It's about being fair in an unfair world. Are you down with the cracker?
And that's what happened while we were away.
That's better than what SNL is doing these days. I'll tell you that. Aaron's Montage brought to you by our friends over at Relief Factor. If you are waking up every morning wondering how your pain is going to affect your day, we might have the answer to that question. Maybe the answer is not anymore. Now, no guarantees, but over the years, over 1 million people have tried the 3-week quick start via Relief Factor. 70% of them saw such good results in 3 weeks or less that they stuck with the product long term. So what do you got to lose to see if you don't see a difference in your pain in 3 weeks or less, especially when it costs just $20 to find out? That's it. $20 for the drug-free supplement by physicians who can prescribe drugs called Relief Factor. See if you don't see a difference in your quality of life and pain in 3 weeks or less when you go to relieffactor.com. Get the 3-week quick start for just $20 at relieffactor.com. Let's get to Aaron's Montage, gentlemen. Who here thinks the firing of this Federal Reserve governor is a potential test case here for Jerome Powell, maybe?
It is the case. It is the case. I read some analysis this morning. Can't remember where I read it. But potentially, and I'm not saying I endorse this, I'm just laying out what I read. Potentially, if the Fed allows Lisa Cook to continue on in her role and making decisions as a governor of the Federal Reserve, and it's found out in court that actually, no, this was a for-cause incident, then Jerome Powell will be liable for allowing her to stay on as a Fed governor, making him actually a for-cause risk. So this is the case. All right.
I think that's a really good argument. But Jerome Powell, that's a pretty important job, right? Affects a lot of lives. Like, why do we need cloak and dagger reasons to get rid of a guy who's not doing the job that the people need him to do?
Well, it does beg a question. Why did we give arguably the most important unelected job in the government to someone who can't be impeached and can't be fired? So you're God Emperor, right?
Yeah. What are we doing?
Yeah. So that's essentially what you are. You're God Emperor then, basically, is what we are saying at that point. On flag burning, I don't care. And if I ever do a show on this, forget the air gun. Grab a butcher knife and slit my throat. It's just beyond stupidity. I have no takes. I'll just repeat what I have said for years. When Republicans are out of things to talk about or think they need to change the subject, and this has been true whether Trump is king now or Bush was before or McCain was before, Romney was before, things change. You know, these men are dramatically different from one another, obviously, and I'm not drawing a moral equivalency. But whenever Republicans are just out of things to talk about or think they need some kind of palate cleanser, the flag burning stuff comes out. That's true in your state legislature. That's true at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. It's just retarded and stupid, and all takes on it are dumb. The amount of time wasted on said issue is dumb and retarded, and I have no point. And I don't care if Todd and Aaron have one. I won't ask them for one because there's no point to be had. It's just that here's the point. The whole thing's just dumb and retarded. So let's move on to something that I think requires a point to be made. Help me understand. Help me understand what is America First about importing 600,000 Chinese communists, according to Trump, and then to do so, according to Howard Lutnick, the Commerce CEO, in order to keep open universities that are attempting to import communism into our culture. I'm asking. And there is no answer, at least not one that's good.
It's even worse than that, Steve. The argument he made, it wasn't to keep open the upper echelon.
It was the bottom feeders.
15.
Yeah, the bottom feeders, yes. You're right. I'm sure there's no Chi-Coms at NYU, no Chi-Coms at Brown, no Chi-Coms at Harvard, Yale, Stanford, no Chi-Coms at Johns Hopkins, Carnegie Mellon. I'm sure it's just the bottom 15%. Your local, they're coming here for Butler County, Kansas Junior College. That's what they're coming here for, the bottom 15%. Now, hey, since the start of this year, I have been, and I told you going into this year, I was going to do it. Go team. Because we need to get this thing off to an excellent start. And this thing has to be successful. Otherwise, we just made this last election, which we thought was extremely important, utterly irrelevant. But every now and then, you got to say to your own team, okay? You got to pull a quarterback when he's 3 interceptions into a game and it's the second quarter. All right? By the way, that's double the amount of SHICOMs we are currently taking. The number was about 300,000 prior to COVID. We were taking it over 300, just over about 340,000 prior to COVID-19, which they probably brought with them. Now we're going to double it? Why? There is absolutely nothing America First about this. Howard Lutnick's explanation, if that's the best you got, you need to pick, you can't say that to Laura Ingraham. She's like the MAGA wing of MAGA. She's like one of the true believers in this stuff. You got to go say that. You got to go pick somebody's show who had like no standing at all prior to Trump and go on that show and say it so that then that person who's one of your paid influencers can just sit there and, nod with a Mike Pencean level of forlorn, solemn look and furrowed brow, like what you're saying is actually serious. It's not serious, and don't call me Shirley. You want to lose to Abdul El Sayed? Let me tell you how you're going to lose to Abdul El Sayed. Tell your own voters who can't afford a house, can't improve their job prospects, and can't afford a car. You tell them we have to bring in 600,000 Chinese communists for reasons. And it's to keep open the colleges that are actually importing the poison of communism into the culture, which, by the way, they're being asked to subsidize while not being able to upscale their jobs, their homes, or cars. If that's our platform, Abdul El Sayed can say whatever the hell he wants. Abdul El Sayed can light a cross on fire at the Michigan Democratic Convention. Scream death to America. Oh, I don't know, like they did in Dearborn last weekend. Abdul El Sayed can say and do whatever he wants. He can maybe be the Middle Eastern man that followed Brianna Morella home there in Dallas over the weekend. He can just choke her out if he wants. Because if our platform is 600,000 SHICOMs, because the subsidized universities have to stay open, that's our platform in messaging? It's so dumb. It's so bad. I was wondering, where was Debbie Burks in her bedazzled scarf? That's the dumbest crap I've seen since the last coronavirus task force meeting. I have no idea if that was a troll, if that was some kind of, this is what I've got to do to negotiate this deal with the SHICOM, so let me throw it out there and see how my base responds, trial balloon. Whatever it was, we all need to shoot that puppy down with maximum prejudice. And let's just say mistakes were made and someone turned on the auto pen from the last administration and forget the whole thing happened. You want to lose 40 House seats next year, sir? You want to spend the last 2 years of your public life in nothing but never-ending impeachments? Let's run on 600,000 SHICOMs come in to preserve universities that are communist and are already being subsidized by taxpayers who can't afford a car loan, can't sell their homes. Let's go with that one. It blows my mind. There is absolutely nothing America first about that. That's not defensible. That's not sellable. Nothing. And notice, we're not the ones that prompted this question or debate. That was just offered up to us. And then to send the Commerce Secretary out to defend it, and on all people's shows, Laura Ingraham, there's other shows you could go to where people will literally just, say and do what anybody who writes them a check tells them to say and do. Which is why we don't have those people on our shows here at this program. Or at least as long as I own it, we won't. And I do, so we don't. But that's your Monday 8 a.m. discussion point.
It has a certain abandoned free market principles in order to save them energy, doesn't it?
For how on brand and on message this has been for the first 6-7 months, it's so bad that I have to think it is part of some kind of trade negotiation with China. By the way, would you like to know how many American students China imports? You know the number? It's less than 1,000. It's less than 1,000. Because apparently they care more about their country, institutions, and culture than we do. For whatever reason, we seem to be the only country in the world that's not allowed to protect and preserve its institutions, culture, and systems for its actual citizens. We seem to be the only country that this applies to. Not to mention, if you don't bring in 600,000 SHICOMs to fill those spots in those universities, what do you think might happen without the supply of students to the price of said university? What do you think would happen then? Go down maybe? Then maybe Americans could afford to go there and actually get a skill set that they could actually maybe then afford a car, a house, and maybe a thought.
Like I was saying about those market principles. But it's even worse, man, because right now it's going with tariffs here in Iowa. They just got rid of a bunch of jobs at John Deere. Now, John Deere is blaming that on tariffs. I don't know if that's true. And we all agree that the tariff debate involves some near-term trade-offs for long-term gain. But Steve, as a long-term political messenger, whether that's true or not by John Deere, and maybe John Deere is hiding something in what they were going to do anyways, politically, the guys in Michigan that you're talking about, that's exactly the messaging, the juxtaposition of how Trump doesn't care about American citizens, and look at what he's doing here on this front.
For 7 months, I didn't think there was an issue. That doesn't mean they batted 1,000. They're human beings. No one's perfect. All right? But they were doing pretty darn good.
Oh, great.
And because of that, for 7 months, I just didn't feel the need to have too many conversations like this. Because if we're on offense, more times than not, and we're in a civil war, and the answer to that question for 7 months was yes, and we're in a civil war, a cold civil war, and the answer to that question is certainly yes. Therefore, because I'm under threat of invasion, I have to make sure. That doesn't mean there's never a time you don't go to your own generals, your own high command, and say, that's not going to work. But it's got to be like egregiously bad to interrupt the back and forth with the common enemy here that we both have, right? It's got to be, to me, the threshold's got to be pretty high to aim your fire at your own side when you're being fired on by the other one all the time, like Abdul El Sayed there at the Michigan Democratic Convention. Right on? Okay. Maybe I'm wrong, but there's been 2 of these already here in the last 30 days or so. The Epstein thing was just completely mismanaged again. Put him at odds with his own base again. But at least with the Epstein thing, that wasn't preemptively self-inflicted, meaning the messaging on that and the delivery on that was a self-inflicted error. But they didn't prompt that themselves, meaning we have, well, maybe they kind of did with what Pam Bondi did back in February, right? But that had been a continuing issue that predated him. You see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
All right, he kind of inherited how he was going to navigate that mess. In this case, this reminds me of my old boss, and I love Ted Cruz. But in the middle of a debate with Tucker Carlson, let me pick out one verse of Genesis 12 and throw that in there so that now I give Tucker all the ammunition for the rest of the debate to not have to discuss the merits of anything else I'm going to say, because I chose preemptively of my own volition, even though it never came up, I chose to throw this in there. That's kind of what happened here. There's really no purpose to this discussion. There is nothing good about this. Nothing. I cannot imagine there is a single listener or viewer to this program anywhere in America who thinks if we followed through on this, it would be a net positive for the country. The answer is 0.0. And then to send remember, who was what is it about Commerce Secretary hires? Remember Wilbur Ross in the first term? Yeah. Came out with a can of soup. Do you remember this?
Yep.
Okay. Because that's what we need. A multi-billionaire lecturing people about what they can and cannot afford. That's nothing says populist like a multi-billionaire saying to people, stop whining, stuff's not that expensive. Come on, man. Hey, teams going to slumps, all right? My Detroit Tigers lost like 13 out of 15 after they were the first team to get to 20 wins, 30 wins, 40 wins, 50 wins, and 60 wins. They lost 13 out of 15. Now they're up by 11 games in the division. Last night, Tarek Skubal gave up 6 runs. About what he gives up for a season almost. Teams going to slumps. But this is now the second unforced error where we're going to need max turnout from our base. Max turnout. We cannot sit here on August 26th and know for sure whatsoever what the economic environment in this country is going to be 1 year from now. Which is going to be largely what determines the electoral environment heading into the fall for the midterms. It'll be about this time next year. Congress will we'll be coming out of August recess. They'll do very limited things in the fall, and then they'll go home and campaign. So whatever the economic environment is on this date next year is going to determine much of the Trump presidency from this time forward. Because if we lose the House, it's just going to be impeachments and hearings and prosecutions for Trump cabinet officials and Trump himself for the final 2 years of his presidency. So we just can't afford errors like this. We just can't. We're going to import 600,000 Chi-Coms is bad enough as a standalone. But then to say so that we can prop up the subsidized universities already trying to make the country communist? How about we don't take any Chi-Coms and we make them take and train American students instead and tell them they're going to lose all taxpayer funding and subsidies if they don't? Here are the basic requirements and skills for high professional tech jobs that Americans need and American children must have, and the parents want their American children to have. And if you don't give that to us, we just yank all your funding and you're screwed. Because let's assume Lutnick's even telling the truth about that big assumption, but let's assume that he is. Those 15% of universities aren't sitting on the billion-dollar endowments that Stanford, Notre Dame, Harvard, and Yale are sitting on. They're not sitting on stuff like that. They'll board up the windows without subsidies. To me, this is an opportunity to actually make American universities on that level American again. Instead of depots for Chinese communists. What in the Sam Hill? Simple word. No. Hey, our friends over at Patriot Mobile, they've been on the cutting edge of building the parallel economy here in America. And thankfully, in an industry where all of us need this product in order to thrive in modern society. That's your mobile phone. You can join them today. They make it easier than ever to make the switch. They've got contract buyout programs. If you're locked into a long-term deal with one of the communist corporations that you hate because you found out they now have been hating you the entire time, you don't have to sacrifice quality at all. In fact, Patriot Mobile is one of the only carriers out there, communist or otherwise, that gives you access to all of the major networks out there within their main hub. You can switch anytime you want as a member for free if you relocate to a different part of your town, state, or country where one signal, one network is better than the other. They'll switch you right away and at no extra charge. A U.S.-based customer service team, and they get you started with a free month of service with the offer code Steve. When you go to patriotmobile.com/Steve, make the switch today. Keep your number, switch your number, keep your phone, upgrade your phone, whatever you want. At patriotmobile.com/Steve, using the promo code Steve, you'll get a free month of service to kick it off and get started at patriotmobile.com/Steve, promo code Steve. Well, this is a story that has been making the rounds while we were away for a long weekend. And since it's right here in our own backyard, we thought we need to feature it for sure. Elayne Casalins is a naturalized citizen who lives right here in the state of Iowa in a small town, wanted to become an American because she believed in the values of America and wanted to pass those on to her children. And that's why she wasn't happy with some of the things that were occurring in her school district. And that school district has made sure that they're not happy with her. And Elayne joins us here today on The Blaze with her attorney, Cory Brewer, as well. Welcome to both of you, ladies. Thanks for joining us today here on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast.
Thank you for having us here. Thank you.
You bet. Elayne, we'll start with you. I set it up for you, but kind of fill in the blanks for us with your story.
Yeah, I suppose it's very sad that things like that are happening, even in a small town. I had this bad experience in school at something that my son was being taught that it was not age appropriate, a movie that was PG-13 without any parental consent. And the video song that is political, really kind of like an activism, is not something that a kid should be exposed to. Mm-hmm. And I complained to the teacher, and when she dismissed my concerns, I complained to the principal. And after the principal dismissed my concerns too, I talked to the superintendent, and she did the same thing. And that's when I realized that I needed to speak out at the school board meeting because it's my right as a parent to be involved in my son's education. And when I speak in the school board meeting, after that, I received a cease and desist letter from the teacher's lawyer. I was shocked, really. I'm scared. I didn't know that something like that could happen just for raising concerns and the school board meeting about your son's education.
So this is small town Iowa. You go to a school board meeting as a tax-paying citizen, okay, where this is a body, an entity that is subsidized by you as a tax-paying citizen. Just to make sure, put it on the record, did you threaten anybody there? Did you, anything of that nature whatsoever that would have given them cover to do anything like this? Anything beyond just you expressed your disappointment with what you thought was not age-appropriate content for your son, essentially trying to indoctrinate him into their version of political activism? Was it anything at all beyond that whatsoever?
I didn't mention the teacher's name. And my concerns were I wanted accountability and an investigation because things like that shouldn't be taught in the school.
Mm-hmm. Where do things stand now with you, the community, and your school board as of right now, Elayne?
I'm not sending my son anymore to this school district, and I didn't feel support. They all brushed me off, even when I report the cease and desist letter. They didn't do anything to protect my rights, and I just don't feel any support from them.
So, Cory, now we kind of turn to you, and I know school board issues and topics are kind of one of your legal specialties. So I live in Iowa. I'm one of the people that has been working over the last decade plus to turn this state as red as it is. All right. But to hear small town, salt of the earth, Iowa, that this is happening in means it could literally be happening anywhere. But have you seen any cases like what Elayne is describing? How common are they?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So unfortunately, we have seen this before here in Wisconsin, where we're based, where here it was a teacher that went out and hired an attorney and threatened a lawsuit for defamation against a parent raising concerns. Here in Wisconsin, we represented a parent who received a similar letter from the school district. So we are seeing this tactic that's kind of trying to bully parents into silence when they raise concerns about their kids' education. It's really, I think, an intimidation tactic.
Give us your thoughts on Elayne's case in particular, specifically as a lawyer that has handled and observed these kinds of cases in the past.
Yeah, thank you. So I just want to read really briefly from the school board policy and Iowa law, because they give her the right to do exactly what she did in this instance. So there was a policy here that said that members of the district community may object to the instructional materials utilized in the school district and ask for their use to be reconsidered, which is it's a good policy. And it's really unfortunate that when our client, Elayne, mentioned her concerns, she was kind of brushed aside. And then there's also an Iowa state law that says that the superintendent of school districts should ensure that any curriculum does not teach, advocate, encourage, promote, or act upon specific stereotyping and scapegoating toward others on the basis of demographic group membership or identity. And we didn't really get into this yet, but there was a YouTube video played that Mrs. Casalins complained about or asked questions about that included background imagery of police brutality, systemic racism, Black Lives Matter. And as she said, this was all done without any parental notification or consent. So I think right off the bat, she had every right, also under the First Amendment, her parental rights to direct the upbringing of her child, to raise these concerns. And that's not even getting to the point that nothing she said was defamatory. We think that the letter she received got the law totally wrong.
So I'm glad that you deviated into what the content was in particular. On purpose, Cory, I did not ask about that because I didn't want to set the premise that it was situational whether parents had the right to do what Elayne chose to do, regardless of whether it's content I like or don't like. I mean, to me, if we're going to have parental rights, then I think that's, then that ought to be comprehensive across the board. But I think now that it's given the district's actions here and the way they've threatened her, I think now it does become germane to the conversation. What about this specific content? Did they find that they were threatened by her raising even just a slight modicum, frankly, of pushback against that? Just one mom in a small town. What is it about this content in particular that you can't dare defy it?
Yeah, I think you're right that different parents are going to draw the line in different places. What is problematic to one parent or seems age inappropriate to one parent could be different for another family. And I think that's why parental notice and consent, or at least the right to opt out of these types of instructions, that's really key. And if I could just briefly mention, there's a brand new Supreme Court decision, United States Supreme Court, that reaffirmed that parents have the right to direct the upbringing of their children, including their education and including in public schools. Will actually has an opt-out form ready to go for parents in any state, will-law.org/parents. Anyone can go there, fill it out for free, enforce your rights like Mrs. Casalins did. But I think, what's really key is involving the parents and letting the parents make that decision. And by the way, parents under the First Amendment can then raise concerns about what they are seeing in the classroom. They should be involved.
What would be a benign, innocent explanation, Cory, for why a school district would not want parents involved?
Well, one thing in this letter that we received is that as Mrs. Casalins mentioned, she didn't mention the teacher by name, and in the letter she received, they didn't actually say what it was she said that was allegedly defamatory. They just asked her to stop making public comments and threatened to sue her, which is, I think, scary for any parent receiving that. I can't think of a good idea for doing this. I think there should be transparency. There should be collaboration between schools and parents, between teachers and parents, not this adversarial relationship that we're seeing too often. And just my own personal note, I don't know how any teacher has the time to go hire a lawyer to threaten a parent for speaking up, and it's totally inappropriate.
Good point there. Elayne, back to you. How has the rest of the community responded to this? Have you been shunned by your neighbors? Have they come to your support? I mean, because in these small towns, and you know what, this is my home state too, so I know these kinds of towns very well. And in many cases, the school, particularly through the athletic endeavors, is kind of one of the main identities of a lot of these small towns, right? So are they rallying to you? Are they shunning you? I mean, what's it like in your community right now?
I'm surprised because a lot of people have been like very supportive with me, like with this situation, and I didn't know that so many people were going to reach out to me and to help me, like, give me advices about this situation. And I'm happy that other parents like think like me, that we have the right to output to some certain things with our children, and we can decide the way that we raise them, which values we raise them with. And many parents already reach out to me, and I'm happy for that, that other parents think just like me. That's
good to hear. Do either of you know the backgrounds of the members of this board and the superintendent? Are they from the community? Because we covered a story a year ago where a small town library in Illinois had essentially been taken over by activists from another state. And when they started putting a bunch of rainbow jihad propaganda in it for the kids, and the librarian in the local community started to push back, that's when they found out that a lot of that leadership structure was actually not from the actual community, but came in specifically to kind of try to spread this message even into rural and small town communities. So do either of you guys know the background? Are these people actually native to this community or even the state of Iowa?
I'm really not sure.
Yeah, go ahead, Elayne.
No, I'm not sure. What was alarming to me is that the district and the school board didn't support me, even when I complain about the cease and desist letter. I'm just shocked. Even my son doesn't feel safe going back to school for that.
Yeah, I was just going to add that, as I mentioned right now, this was an individual teacher that went out and hired a lawyer to threaten a parent. So far, Will's representation of Elayne has been with regard to that initial cease and desist lawsuit threat that she received. But as she mentioned, I think it's important to hold the local school district accountable too, because they did not take her concerns seriously when she first brought them up. And it kind of seems, and not necessarily specific to this district, but in our work in general at Will, when we do K-12 legal work, that school districts kind of want things to go away. And I think it's important in Iowa, in other states, to hold them accountable and make sure that parents are involved.
So to that end, I happen to know the governor of this state on a first name basis. I happen to know several people that want to be the next governor of this state on a first name basis. I happen to know several members of the Iowa State Legislature on a first name basis. So what is it, people, I could literally just text right now during the next commercial break if I wanted to. So tell me what, if anything, I could do to assist with this matter.
From my end, I want parents, and I think, Elayne, let me know if you agree with this. I want parents to know that they have a right to be involved and they have a right to speak out. Iowa law already supports that, but in this case, it wasn't respected. And the school board policy wasn't respected. And as I mentioned, we have this new Supreme Court decision that reaffirms parents' rights to direct the upbringing of their children. So I think just drawing attention to this, letting parents know what their rights are, and supporting parents and kind of just encouraging more involvement and holding districts accountable, holding teachers accountable, more of that collaborative partnership and more involvement, I think would go a long way.
Yeah.
I agree. Go ahead, Elayne. Finish your point. I'm sorry.
I agree. I agree with everything that Cory says.
Well, if I can help, do not hesitate to ask me. If our audience wants to follow this, well, first of all, a quick question for you, Cory. a lawyer filing a lawsuit that is a clear violation of expressed state law, any grounds for any kind of citation, a bar association citation or anything like that for such an attorney, for example?
Great question. I think I don't know about that, but I think that if the teacher in this case were to go forward and actually file a lawsuit, that they would lose. I think Mrs. Casalins would win and win pretty quickly. And one of the things we mentioned too in our letter to that attorney is that this teacher, as a public employee, could be liable for damages under federal law if she were to violate our client's First Amendment rights. So this is something that we're going to keep looking at going forward and make sure we make the right strategic legal decisions to defend Mrs. Casalins and just hold the district accountable.
Folks, if this can happen in small town Iowa, it can absolutely happen. We've got listeners all over the country. This can happen anywhere in America. Cory, what's the best way for people to keep up on this case if they want to do that?
Yes, I would say go to our website, will-law.org. You can also follow Will on Twitter, WI Law Liberty. And as I mentioned, parents, go check out our parents' website, will-law.org/parents. And reach out to us directly. The way we know how to put out resources is when we hear what's going on in the local communities, and we're always available. So thanks so much for having us on.
You bet. We're heading into school board election season here in the month of September around the country. So there could be other parents that could be running into the same problem as Elayne. So will-law.org/what again?
Parents.
Parents. All right. will-law.org/parents. is where you want to go. Please keep us up to date on this, and I am happy to pester high-ranking public officials here in the state of Iowa on your behalf. Should you find it to be helpful, all right, just let me know.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. God bless you, Elayne. Take care. Take care.
Thank you.
You bet. Now, I know I saw you nodding your head over there, Todd, about 15 times during this interview. I know you have personal experience with this very conversation.
A
all right?
lot.
I know you do. We're up against the break. All right, so when we come back, so that's a tease. When we come back, this exact same thing happened to you. I mean, this exact same thing happened to you. I mean, verbatim.
Yes.
Cease and desists and everything else. The exact same thing happened to you. And I think people need to know why that happened to you. And we'll get into this when we come back. And then we're going to have this conversation for idolatry or not. Is it just misguided marketing, or is this an attempt to just strip the culture of imagination? We'll get into that and more with Hour 2. Stay tuned. And we're back with Hour 2, live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast with Aaron McIntyre and Todd Erzin. I'm Steve Deace. Let us know what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox. You can do that by emailing us, steve@stevedeace.com. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook, MeWe, and Gab. You can follow me at Steve Deace Show on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Please subscribe to our new YouTube channel. Try it anyway. At Deace Show on YouTube. At Deace Show on YouTube. Try it. You never know. We know, but try it anyway. You can also, if you love the podcast version, you can subscribe to that. And they do seem to at least be counting most of those numbers for us, so that's good. It's subscribe everywhere else, but if you podcast on Apple, iTunes, it's follow these days. And that's how you'll know for sure that every time we do a new episode, it's right there in your podcast feed. Thank you if you've done that for us. Thank you as well for all of the 5-star reviews, tens of thousands of them, in fact. We'd love it to keep those going. And if you want to add yours today, we appreciate that. And thank you in advance for that, as we do all the rest of you. We, in retro, say thank you for the ones you have previously posted as well. And we want to thank our friends over at Beam Dream Powder for this part of the show, and you'll be thanking them with your next good night's sleep as well. Proudly funded and founded in America, run by people who share our values of hard work, integrity, delivering results. It's a healthy nighttime blend of science-backed ingredients shown to improve sleep so that you can wake up refreshed and ready to go take on the day. When I found Dream, I mean, it was a game changer, man. I started sleeping through the night to the point, forget tossing and turning, I didn't have to get up to pee. I know I was supposed to read that part verbatim, but frankly, I kind of liked my angle better. Because if you're a 52-year-old man, that's going to be a lot of people in this audience. Wait a minute. You didn't have to get up to pee? Nope. Sold! All right, there you go. All right. You'll wake up energized, not groggy. It can be a game changer for you like it was for me. So here's the deal. Beam is giving you guys the ultimate Patriot discount up to 40% right now. Up to 40% off to try their best-selling Dream Powder, the nice little hot cocoa that's not packed with sugars and carbs you'll drink right before you go to bed. And you'll get up to 40% off for a limited time if you go to shopbeam.com/Steve and use the code Steve at checkout. Shop Beam, B-E-A-M, as in laser beam, beam in your eye. Shopbeam.com/Steve and use the code Steve for up to 40% off, and you'll sleep better, wake up stronger, show up ready for your family, your work, and your country, because when you're well rested, you're unstoppable. And this country needs more people like that. That's shopbeam.com/Steve. Use the promo code Steve at checkout. All right, before we get to idolatry or not, I know this story, Todd, hits close to home for you. Because exactly what we just heard from Elayne Casalins is, forgive me, I forgot her last name. Exactly what we just heard from Elayne, you went through in your own community of Carlisle, Iowa as well, right down to the cease and desist letters.
Yeah, another small town. Folks, listen hard. So a lot of times when it's me or Steve doing something like this, well, if you would have just been nice.
Yes.
It was your tone.
Yes.
You're the angry white guy. Folks, if you step out of line, it doesn't matter if you're the sweet brown-skinned lady who's an immigrant to this country. They're going to take you out just as hard. You have to either join the cult or
Elayne might as well belong to the John Birch Society at this point as a naturalized citizen.
And here she is. She said she picked Iowa to come to and did it the right way because she thought it stood for the kind of values here that are just utterly being ignored. So that's point number one. Point number two, not only does she obviously have the right to do this based on the First Amendment, but again, since this is Iowa and almost all these school districts craft their policies a similar way, in my school district, it was policy that school district officials can't retaliate against you simply for using your First Amendment rights to hold them accountable, which just goes to show it's policy for thee, but not for me. They will ignore any policy they want you to hurt you. And again, when the cease and desist letter was sent to me, this teacher, I don't know for sure, but in my case, it was sent by her union flex. So they pay their dues, but she didn't have to pay for this. And therefore, you're put in the position over and over again in a public school district when they decide to come after you, they're using your money to come after you, and then you have to go use your own money to defend yourself.
Right.
This whole thing is a ridiculous scam, and I'm glad people are sticking up for her, but the simple truth of the matter is that teacher who did this, based on the fact that it should be policy that she can't do this, should be fired.
Correct.
And anybody on that board should resign if they aren't willing to go to that length to make sure that this school district belongs to the taxpayers like her who are doing their duty as parents. And again, this is why I get so damn mad about people who refuse to be citizens. I don't know how long she's been here. Why is she fighting so hard for this while everybody just watches and lets the kids be transed? We are going to die as a nation. I promise you, unless you start willing to do at least as much as she is.
Aaron, you have any thoughts on this before I add something?
It's just the latest indication of this phenomenon that I have discussed over and over again. There is just this calcified mindset amongst the kind of public school administration.
Great term.
And a subculture that they own you and your kids, especially your kids. This is how dare you say you have any say whatsoever. Hearing from Elayne herself, it's very obvious to me that she probably didn't go into that school board going fire and brimstone on them. She was probably very respectful, just from what I heard here. Okay, she is a naturalized American citizen, correct? Which means what? She likes to follow rules. She knew what her rights were as a parent. She was following all of these steps correctly. So these are just some facts, the very little that we know about Elayne. So I'm guessing she probably didn't go in there guns up and started, coming up to the line. She just laid out, this is my concern. This is what happened. Can we please fix that? And for that just modicum of feedback, that modicum of criticism, it prompted a freaking threat.
Yep.
That is, I think, the perfect example of what I talk about with this phenomenon. They own you and your children. Similar to how I kind of think that if an institute of higher education's existence is predicated on whether or not 600,000 spies can attend other schools, you've probably got some fundamental issues.
We're just cooked.
Yes, kind of the same thing in this instance, that dynamic that Todd was just laying out there, that you with your own money pay these teachers to sue you, and you have to defend yourself with your own money. Might I suggest that foundationally is probably pretty cooked as well, probably pretty broken. So I hope there's an opportunity for a countersuit here just to make an example out of somebody.
I think attorneys who represent people who do things like this, that's why I brought it up to Cory, need to face penalties and disbarment. And I want to add, this is why I was so worked up about what Larry Arnn wanted to discuss this time a week ago.
Yep.
I had forgotten about that. So
and
thanks so much, Steve.
And well, you're the one that brought it. I didn't see that until you put it on my plate too. So the favor, we're even now. And listen, Larry, there's a segment of you that are not happy with me and what I've said about this over the last week. And let me say this, Larry has earned over the course of his career and work, he has earned that level of pushback against me within my own audience. He's not a schmuck. If he was, I actually wouldn't have addressed it at all. I only addressed it because he's not. I've got friends of mine that have come out of that school. I know it very well. So that was why I raised a 3-alarm fire over this a week ago, because if this is embedded at that level, we're really screwed. And when I said last week that Larry is having a conversation it's either too early for, meaning that we first have to determine what is a nation. What's a nation? What is that? What is a nation? What is it? Maybe that's Matt Walsh's next movie. What's a nation? What's a country? Before we can decide if we're going to have, how deeply embedded we're going to take a religious framework that Larry is theologically correct about, in that it emanates not of this world. That doesn't mean it's not here to penetrate this world. It can't be any more obvious than it's supposed to than God leaving the other world, coming to this one and putting himself in human form to engage, to penetrate the defenses of this world and engage us directly. I don't know how much more obvious it can be that just because the kingdom is not of this world does not mean it is not supposed to confront this world. Because that's what God did. First, he gave his spirit to prophets and to Moses, and then he put himself in human form, the Holy Spirit made manifest in the form of Christ Jesus. So just because it's not originally from this fallen materialistic world does not mean it is not to invade or penetrate or confront this fallen materialistic world. In about a month and a half, Todd and I are going to start arguing about whether it's too early yet to celebrate Christmas. What is the entire season about? The kingdom not of this world came to this world. That's what the whole thing's about. It didn't stay out in the ether, proclaiming, philosophizing. It came.
On earth as it is in heaven.
Yes. And then before he left, that's how he taught him how to pray. And then he told him, hey, by the way, all authority now under the other kingdom, and now this one, I've conquered this kingdom. I've overcome this kingdom. All authority under that kingdom and this one now is granted unto me. I earned it. And I now bestow some of that authority unto you. So go finish the mission. Now, I'm not ignorant of the fact. I won't put my historical knowledge up against Larry Arn's, but I'm also not ignorant of the fact that Christianity has not always done a great job, particularly within the West, of understanding what the limits of government and ecclesiastical authority intermingled together should be. I'm not saying there's never a time for having that debate. I just know it's not right now, because we don't even know what a nation is. Let alone, are we going to return to blasphemy laws? Are we going to return to sodomy laws? Are we going to have adultery laws? My goodness, I hope we get to have those. You know what? That we won't. I hope our children and grandchildren get to debate such things again. And I hope we can go back and read Montesquieu and Locke and Hobbes. That'd be great. We're not there. And it's either too early for that because we don't know what a nation is, or it's too late because we've lost the nation we once knew. The time for drawing distinctions and nuances on our side is not at hand. We just had a 105-pound naturalized citizen whose English was clearly her second language, and in any other context would be the symbol that the spirit of the age would use to emotionally blackmail and manipulate us to give up everything we know is right and true so we don't get called racist. And the minute she said, well, I really didn't come here for my kid to be taught St. George Floyd funeral propaganda, they looked at her, man, like she was Joe Webbin. Okay? I don't know, maybe her kid's name's Nick Fuentes for all I know. No, this is not the time for policing ourselves. We just had a debate about whether to defund the police last year. Okay? Not the time. Not the time. Which is why I'm not taking any time to do it. Because if I do, and if too many of us do, we will be out of time to save what's left of this civilization. A teacher thinks that they can procure an attorney because you don't like their curriculum and send you a cease and desist. In your case, it was a sex abuse scandal, if I remember right, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was among the things going on.
Yeah. Which did turn out to be true.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. This is not time. After we haven't watched the Brits sail away in Yorktown, so let's gather the founding fathers together to determine how do we have a Christian culture and mitigate all these various different ecclesiastical, dogmatic, creedal differences so we don't kill each other on the plains the way we did in the fields of Europe 300 years ago. Not the time for this. Abdul El-Sayed just said, we got to choke him out. At the Michigan Democratic Convention, a naturalized citizen was told, no, you don't. I'm sorry, you ceased being Hispanic. Here's your John Birch Society card. It's not the time. Larry's wrong. It's not that the fundamental argument he wants to have is wrong. It's the timing of it is wrong. You are so out of touch, frankly. If your natural instinct is to look at what we're up against and think, okay, we've got a corner and sliver of radicals over here. And that really needs to be where my attention is. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Yesterday, your son slapped his mom. Existentially poor choice on the behalf of your son. But tomorrow, the next day, someone just comes to your home and decides they're going to reenact The Strangers at you and your family's expense. you're still pretty pissed at your son for slapping his mom, right?
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, you're going to need to band together and do everything you possibly can to throw that home invasion out. You see where I'm going with this?
Yes.
That's where we are. If you don't understand that's where we are, I don't even want to contemplate what more needs to happen for you to understand it. Because that's not, frankly, a price I'm willing to pay at the expense of your nuance and still being welcomed on certain cable news channels. And I'm not talking about MSNBC and CNN. I'm talking about Fox.
You know, you're Isaiah 1. Where would you yet be
Correct.
stuck?
That's not where we are. Know what time it is. Here's what time it is. In one of the reddest states in the country, which has one of the most radical school choice programs in the country, and not in Des Moines or Iowa City or Ames in a college town or Des Moines, its big city, but in a small town. Someone told a naturalized citizen that in any other context, we would be told should have more than us, is a better American than us, that they don't get to be an American at all. That's what time it is. It is not time to gather the Federalist and the Anti-Federalist. It is not time for liberty and virtue. It's a time for survival. Survival. Which brings me to idolatry or not. Brought to you by our friends over at Deace Medical. Because medical freedom is not a luxury. It's the right of every American. Well, unless you don't take advantage of it, then it's not. Just words on a page. One way you can take advantage of it is with our friends over at Deace Medical. Get their Deace case. I think we've learned with our institutions, you can't trust them all of the time. Whether it's delayed aid after a disaster, supply chain breakdowns, pharmacy shortages, taking medications they just gave a Nobel Prize to and then labeling them dangerous so they can give you a cancer drug with a black box warning that'll make your kidneys fail instead. All of that literally happened. Didn't make any of that up. All facts. All happened, just as I said. That's exactly what they did. No embellishment whatsoever. That's why make sure you take control of your health as much as you can. Get the Deace case, a backup of some of the most venerable antibiotics who might be the next to be called horse paste just when they're needed the most. All right, make that decision today. Take control of your health. Secure your medical freedom today. Enter promo code DEACE at checkout for a discount on your order. That's promo code DEACE at Jace.com. J as in jump at this. Jace.com, promo code DEACE for the discount at checkout. You can expand it as well to maybe some of the medications that you and your family uniquely need. Jace.com, promo code DEACE for the discount. All right, I want to show this photo that caught my eye on X over the weekend. Show this to the audience. Aaron, if you could throw that up there for a second so people can see this. Because there's a lot of talk about Cracker Barrel, all right? But look at this. Look at what's become of McDonald's. Look what's become of Pizza Hut. Look what's become of Taco Bell. And look what's become of Cracker Barrel. These are, now notice, it's almost like the same management consulting firm is running each and every one of these. Now, I've asked around about this to some people I know in the corporate world. And in politics, I've often said there's the real reason people do things and there's the right reason, okay? I'm being told that everybody is trying to emulate Starbucks because Starbucks as a chain is killing everybody else. And this is their basic kind of utilitarian, functionality matters most, in and out quickly. This is basically the Starbucks motif. And that everybody is trying to emulate that. On the other hand, we cannot ignore that there's a certain theme here over and over again of we are going to remove imagination for the absolute most Byzantine, Soviet, utilitarian, blandness we possibly can. Now, in one case, it is we got to reach the Zoomers and the millennials, and this is what they're used to consuming, which opens up another conversation about if that's accurate. What does it say about the virtual reality generation that doesn't want anything imaginative? That's not it. Nothing good would be the answer, okay? The other argument is, though, that this is intentional. Just like we've seen curriculum dumbed down, media corrupted. Take your symbols of your pop culture, of your Americana, strip them down, deconstruct them, reconstruct them in the spirit of the age image. Remove the coloring, remove the imagination whatsoever, that there's a cultural statement being made here. So those are the two options. So my question to you guys, for idolatry or not, which option is the right reason and which option is the real reason? What do you think it is? Or maybe it varies case by case, do you think?
Well, that stripping down that you're talking about.
Is it being done to emulate Starbucks, or is it being done to strip us down?
If it's done being consciously, that's what they're saying. That's not what's going on unconsciously. There is this stripping down that's going on every single front. And it starts with our churches. Our churches used to be cathedrals, and not just Catholic ones.
Mm-hmm.
But now they're shopping malls as well. This is a spiritual crisis. We just got done talking about transgendering the kids. That temple too has been stripped down into something.
That's a good corollary there.
But that's what. And even with what we talked about at the top of the show, in the case with the 600,000 Chinese, Steve, where even football, gay cheerleaders, all the stuff going on in college football, name, image, and likeness. Where, Steve, in America, when we have this is a football conversation, do we get that answer right? The fundamentals. What are we doing here? We get that wrong over and over and over again. So it should not be surprised that it's happening right here. Yes, we can make this into an architectural question purely, and I think there's merit to that too, but this is way broader. Steve, you rightly say, are there any issues that aren't ultimately spiritual? Mm-hmm. The answer is no. And if you want to ruin the good, true, and the beautiful, you make this sterile instead of looking up and seeing church spires and cathedrals and stained glass. You see nothing but automatons over and over that just get in line, just like that brown woman was supposed to do. You came here, you thought you were going to be free? No, you're going to be a slave. That's what's going on here.
Aaron, this is supposed to be appealing to your generation, is what I'm told.
Yes. So it's definitely something. I don't know if it's done consciously, but definitely subconsciously it is, or accidentally. It is indicative of something much deeper and darker. Yes, there is some form of corporate peer pressure, and I think that's a lot to do with, kind of, well, they rebranded and they rebranded and they rebranded. But to strip this down from any sort of personality, individuality, I think this is an indication. This is more like a mirror into who we are as a people.
Mm-hmm.
We don't even know what a life is. We don't know what life is. We don't know what a nation is. We don't know what a woman is. All in the name of individuality, we have actually undefined roles for everyone, and for as much blue hair and piercings and tattoo sleeves, by and large, there is no real difference in the name of individuality, in the name of feminism, what have you. We have undefined so many things. We don't know what anything is anymore. Mm-hmm. We don't know what a human is anymore. We don't know what life is anymore. And you look back at this picture, there is individuality in each of those on the left column. And the exact same, just with a couple different colors on the right. Utterly sterile, utter lack of personality, utter sameness. I think it's just a mirror of who we are as a people. We're not looking for the Hagia Sophia at our local McDonald's. But I think it's an indication, maybe we're trying to chase and look like Starbucks. Dude, just be McDonald's. You don't know who you are. Just, you're McDonald's, and that's okay. You're Pizza Hut, and that's okay. You're Cracker Barrel, and that's okay.
Or you're all an amorphous singular blob.
Or yes. It's just the irony of trying to appeal to a broad base. You just completely lost who you are. And it's like you don't even care either. So I do think that there is something more fundamental here. Sure, there are some corporate, copycats, but it's just rather alarming. There's just nothing beautiful about this.
Aaron, you're channeling, Steve, what you wrote about in Nefarious Plot. At the preface, the devil is legitimately scared about the human experiment, human flourishing at a granular level based on bowing before God. And once he stopped being scared, he realized, no, I'm going to lean into this and I'm going to maximize it. So when they think they're being radically individual, they're all turning into automatons. Mm-hmm. That's what you wrote in your book.
Yeah, that Nefarious points out that even things that are considered to be irreligious, anything that causes us to be better, more imaginative, creative, to point us to what's good, true, and beautiful, even if it's irreligious in its intent entirely, hell is against it. Because feeding those kinds of instincts, even in an irreligious setting, see, hell understands there's no such thing as secular. So even if we are doing the good, the true, the beautiful in an irreligious setting, it may prompt someone to then seek it out in a religious setting. Well, where does this come from? Why do I want this? Why do I desire this? Why do I need this? That Blaise Pascal God-shaped hole in the heart, so to speak. Well, where's this desire to find that which is good, true, and beautiful? Where does it come from? Why do I need this? Right? That's kind of what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And so, even if this is just to emulate Starbucks, or this is what the next generation wants, and it's not a DEI plot, which I don't believe, but even if that's true, that's not actually any more comforting at all. In some respects, it might even be worse. What's worse? That a handful of consulting firms and corporate conglomerate boardrooms have been infiltrated by, a smattering percentage of communists, and they're wrecking and agit-propping all these brands to death. That's terrible, right? I would actually argue that that's not happening, but this is actually what the generation that has more imagination at its fingertips than any in all of human history actually wants in return. I'd argue that's actually worse. We can fix the former way quicker than the latter.
That's the black hole.
Yes.
Great point.
That's where this is now, because Nefarious points this out too. We corrupted you at a granular molecular level, so even if we couldn't get to the institutions, you could not be stopped. The latter is worse in my view than just a DEI plot. Eventually, you can defeat that. But if it's true in the heart, that the heart just wants, just hand me another cup of coffee at 7 a.m., everything is awesome, that's way worse. We are brought to you by our friends over at Preborn, and Preborn is sponsored by you guys. I mean, your generosity, the partnership that we've had with them here at the Blaze, we are literally helping to save tens of thousands of babies every year. Tens of thousands. And your generosity has been incredible to that end. For as little as $28, you can pay for an ultrasound that gives a baby double the odds of surviving the choice before his mom. Because that's about how often the mom's conscience just can't go through with the abortion, the murder of her child that she is considering. And I would argue that we're maybe not just saving the physical lives of these babies, not that that's not preeminent in and of itself, but we might be taking a big step to saving the eternal state of these moms. Because I really do believe that something too often unique happens to harden the heart within women when they commit this heinous sin. And none of us likes admitting we're sinners, regardless of what the sin is or what gender we are. None of us likes admitting it. And we are seeing uniquely in our culture today, we've seen it now the last 2 election cycles, where one side's entire argument to reaching the largest swath of voters that thinks are willing to vote for it is to become essentially serial killers or sociopaths, for lack of a better description. In any other context, that's what we'd call people that are having committing routine murders on a regular basis and then shouting and bragging about it. So this is not just a life-saving venture, but this is a mission field and a ministry as well. Make your tax-deductible donation today when you go to preborn.com/Steve. Preborn.com/Steve. Dial pound 250, say the keyword baby on your mobile phone, or go to preborn.com/Steve. All right, you guys ready for some Pop Culture Tuesday?
Yep.
All right. So I saw this over the weekend. Speaking on a podcast, none other than renowned hedonist himself, Snoop Dogg, said the following when talking about taking one of his grandchildren to see the Buzz Lightyear film in theaters a couple of years ago. They're like, she had a baby with another woman. Well, my grandson in the middle, these are direct quotes, by the way. Well, my grandson in the middle of the movie is like, Papa Snoop, how's she having a baby with a woman? She's a woman. Oh, bleep. I didn't come in for this bleep. I just came to watch the bleeping movie. They just said she had a baby. They're both women. How does she have a baby? It bleeped me up. I'm like scared to go to the movies. Y'all throwing me in the middle of bleep that I don't have an answer for. It threw me for a loop. I'm like, what part of the movie was this? These are kids. We have to show that at this age? They're going to ask questions? I don't have the answer. End quote. Now, I haven't had a chance to listen because Mr. Whitlock, our friend and colleague here at The Blaze, does his show roughly around the same time. There's too much overlap between his and ours. I did see the tease for his show that Snoop Dogg is not the ideal counter to the rainbow jihad. And of course, Jason is correct about that. But let me say this. Whether they should or not is an entirely different discussion. But I can promise you, the rainbow jihad is way more threatened by Snoop Dogg saying this than Franklin Graham, or Jason Whitlock, or Steve Deace, or Jack Hibbs, or Charlie Kirk, or Todd Erzin, or Aaron McIntyre, or Glenn Beck. Way more threatened. Because if it just comes from us, remember the first time it truly hit me, we really are two Americas now. Do you remember that moment? It's when Colin Kaepernick released the Nike show. Do you remember this? And you guys were like, this thing's going to flop. Go woke, go broke. And it dawned on me, at first I was going to agree with you guys, and then it dawned, well, what if it doesn't, right? What if this thing is a huge seller? There's a whole other market in America out there now that didn't exist before, specifically for this kind of product and content. Sure enough, it was a massive seller for Nike. Now, I would guess 0.0 of the people that are going to download this podcast, either because they like it or they want to, would be among those making that purchase. Fair? Mm-hmm. Or they have since repented of such an act. Okay? And that's how they ended up over here with us. All right? But I think we need to consider here that they can get by now without any of us. Now, I don't think that includes things like Cracker Barrel, because people that listen to shows like this and are predominantly the people that were going to things like Cracker Barrel. All right. But there's a parallel economy that works the other way too. And the reality is, if Nike only wanted to make shoes to appeal to the wokesters, they could just do that. They wouldn't make as much money as they are making right now, but they'd still be a multi-billion-dollar company. This is what happens when your social compact is broken. There's plenty of market in the other America for this kind of product and content. Which is why when a construct of that ecosystem speaks out, it's way more threatening. I mean, it didn't seem like we could watch a commercial last year that wasn't political, that didn't have Snoop Dogg in it. He was voicing everything. It was very clear the spirit of the age was just making Snoop Dogg, for whatever reason, man of the moment. We even brought this up last year. How many more commercials is he going to be in, right? How many more movies is Pedro Pascal going to be in, and how many more commercials is Snoop Dogg going to voice or be in?
He was at the Olympics.
Yes. I mean, it was the year of Snoop Dogg for reasons. I have no idea. Dude, they gave Snoop Dogg the reboot of the Joker's Wild Game show. All right?
I did not know that.
They did. They did. And so to have him say these things, I think whether that's true or not, I don't necessarily think it's true. I'd be way more concerned about what the only undefeated being in the history of the universe and the institution that he founded called the church had to say if it was me. But that's not the way they think over there. There's a reason why when any of their people on their side exercises any amount of conscience or restraint at all, it's 24 hours max before I'm terribly sorry, I'm horrible, and I should have known better. And they make sure the struggle session, the discipline is instilled stat. No Democratic president is ever going to say, I think we should probably go ahead and import 600,000 born-again Christians to our universities. Never going to happen. I mean, those universities will fail unless we give these Christian kids from the Philippines a right and proper education. These universities will fail. They need the people. They're never saying that stuff, let alone doing it. The whole opening segment of this show that we did today would never happen, never have to happen on any of their platforms whatsoever. They actually enforce their religion over there. Which is why this caught my eye. Which is why I did look. No apologies so far. Nothing like, yeah, I've got to bow to the woke mob online. None of that. So I hate right-wing content, which is, this person maybe said one thing ever that I agree with. So let's give him a 7-book deal from Zondervan. I freaking hate that crap. Okay, hate it. Been denouncing that my entire career. So this is not that. The reality is, long before Snoop Dogg spoke up, the Buzz Lightyear film was a massive flop for Disney. In fact, it was their very first flop in 40 years, and they've since had 4 others by putting this kind of content into their films. What I think is more fascinating is Snoop Dogg saying this and not being put through the struggle session after doing so, when it was very clear over the last year plus that he was being the algorithm of the other America clearly had granted some level of special status to one Mr. Calvin Brodus. And to have him now come along and take a dump all over their own rainbow jihad, I find that fascinating. Not so much about what it says about us, nothing. It says absolutely nothing. What it says about what might be going on over there. Thoughts, gentlemen, here on a Pop Culture Tuesday.
Well, you've talked a lot about how we sin and how that has changed, gone from painting outside the clearly recognized lines to just removing the lines altogether.
Mm-hmm.
And, this is a guy who's made a lot of money talking about hoes and capping a brother. And yet...
Hold on, Aaron, you recorded that, right?
Yes.
All right, thank you. All right. We will have fun with that later. Finish your thought, Todd. Yes.
But there he is, inside the lines, hey...
America, is there a whiter way to say he has talked about hoes and capping a brother? Is there a whiter way to say that than how you just said it?
And I recognize it. And I cherish it. And I own it. But he's like, I made a lot of money doing this, but there was my lane. This is the Disney plush toy lane. What are you doing here? I made this point. I don't know what the old movie was we were watching as a family. It was classic 80s, 90s or something. But the gay character in it was the socially accepted, you are sidekick number 3.
Mm-hmm.
You got some good lines. You made us chuckle. Okay. You are not the primary character and the next new great Jedi we need to get to know.
And always the only smart, well-adjusted person in every story you're rootfully inserted into.
We were doing the Donald Trump thing back then. We can all be groovy together.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have some disagreements about our morality, okay? But we're not going to poison these kids. And again, this is from a world where the rap world, they know a little something. This is what's amazing. They know a little something, and I think in his private moments he'd admit, we know a little something about poisoning the kids. Because street life, based on growing up on that music, a little dark. But even he's calling like, yo, where are the Mickey Mouse ears at?
So basically, you're saying Snoop is like, there needs to be a red light district. I am that district.
Yeah.
All right? I just wanted to take... Even Snoop, who thinks pot is a food group, okay? Even Snoop needs to be just Grandpa Calvin Brodus every now and then and take the kids to the movies. And this is a bridge too far, even for Mr. Red Light District.
Papa Snoop has spoken, yes.
Aaron, what do you think?
I'm reconsidering my stance on weed because, I mean, that guy has consumed his fair share, more than his fair share, we think, of weed. I mean, if it
more than your fair share.
If it produces people who grew up in California, I think he grew up in California.
Yep.
To come to their senses later on in life about something like this, hey, maybe we need to take a second look at this. But I think the real story here is not necessarily the excess of the rainbow jihad and how deeply their tentacles have gotten into Hollywood at all. I think the bigger story here, or the real story here, is that a guy like Snoop Dogg, he doesn't get to where he is by not playing by some set of rules when it comes to the entertainment industry. Okay? Even though he's rapping about breaking all the rules. I think the real story here is the change in culture, that people are just not as afraid of getting canceled anymore or don't care. I think that's probably the bigger news.
I agree. Where are the stormtroopers? Where's the struggle session? Where's the demand that he get back in line and then he dutifully acquiesces?
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's not so much the excesses and his response to it. It's just people don't care anymore or are exhausted by it and are just waving the white flag. Why are we just ignoring the breaking pop culture news, by the way? Tay-Tay and Trav are engaged.
Yes. You know what? I sincerely wish him well. I hope it works out and they have lots of babies. And I mean that sincerely. The best thing, if you're concerned about Taylor Swift's influence, the best thing that could happen is that they get married and have a lot of babies. That's the best thing that could happen.
I wish you were right, Aaron, about that. But listen, most people, this is the Dark Knight thing. I know a squealer, and that's a squealer, and that's almost everybody. Whatever you think of Snoop Dogg, if they go, if you come at the king, you best not miss. And I don't think there's for a second that he would. I don't think he'd issue an apology. I think you want war? I got all the money in the world. I got a weed farm right over there, man. He's not. And more, see, here's where we're left. As a culture, we must bend the knee and pay homage to King Snoop, apparently because he's one of the very few who won't bend the knee when the kids get trans.
Oh, should we really leave people on a sour note? Really
yes.
Make them mad at us?
That's the only note to leave it on.
Of course, your answer is yes. It's 3 years too late. But did Snoop Dogg say more to speak out against Disney putting homos in the Buzz Lightyear movie than your pastor did in the last 3 years?
Exactly. And we got Chip and Joanna Gaines right now gaying up the Home and Garden Network, okay?
Yes. With drag queen Storytime Hour shows and everything else. Yeah. Yeah.
So, yes, it's me and Snoop in a dark alley. Peace, brother.
That alley's very dark if those are the two of you that are back to back. All right? Like the Night King versus, John versus the Night King. That's watch your six in that case, brother. All right? Watch your six.
This world is so dumb.
It is, which is why I have nothing to say on the flag burning debates, because the whole thing is dumb. It just makes everybody dumb, and everything about it's dumb. And people all have the dumbest takes.
I would pay money to hear Todd just straight read, Mo Money, Mo Problems.
Does Snoop have a podcast? Everybody does.
I hope. I have no idea.
I hope he invites me on. We can sort this
Other
out.
than literally every commercial break of last year, I had no idea what he was doing now until I saw him in every single commercial break that wasn't a political ad last year. Every movie had Pedro Pascal in it, and every commercial had Snoop Dogg in it last year. And now every movie this year, Pedro Pascal's in it again. So there. All right, when we come back, it'll be Wednesday, because that's the end of the show. We're going to stick around and do overtime for Blaze TV subscribers. For the rest of you, we'll see you tomorrow, noon to 2 Eastern, right after Glenn Beck, right here on Blaze TV. Until then, Romans 8:28.